Welcome to this week's track guide at Oulton Park. This is a very narrow track, it's difficult to pass, and so it's really imperative to get a really good qualifying. The car is very twitchy through all the fast corners, so it's really important to brake early and light to maintain the rear stepping out. Also, you have to be careful on throttle as the car wants to hit a lot of the traction control and you'll lose a lot of time having the tires spinning and not going forward. I'll let you finish watching the rest of the lap and then we'll break it down corner by corner. As always, I'm going to be covering the brake marker, the apex, and a crucial aspect of the corner that allows you to go fast. So let's get into it. T1. As we're approaching T1, I want to use all of the road, and as you can see, we want to be right up against the edge of the grass. We want to be braking before this bare metal barrier on the left. Our apex is going to be this protruding curb. We can get a little bit on the dirt here. That's okay. Any more than that and the car is going to want to slide to the left. So you're going to lose a little bit the rear end. On exit, this is as far as you can go. You have to keep to these right tires on this red and white curbing. Any more than that, you get an off track. Any more than if you're on this side, then you'll get a slowdown. And you definitely don't want to slow down. As on the approach to T3, we want to keep the car to the left. That's where you have this right kink here, and we want to straighten. We want to approach this as straight as possible, so we can brake in a straight line. As you can see, there's a bit of a dip here. There's a dip here, but the road kind of crests right around here, and so we want to be braking before the road crests, because as the road crests and we go over that crest, we lose grip. And we want to avoid braking while we're on the crest because we're not going to have that much grip. We want to brake early, and we want to brake light. We want to get the car onto this curb as early as possible. As you can see, this time I missed it, but you want to be on this curb. It's really, really important to be on this curb. Otherwise, you're probably going to run wide here. And if you run wide, more likely you will get an off track. Sometimes you can get away with it. It just depends. Depends where your front wheel is. So this is not an off track in this case. But if I was a little bit more to the right, I would have gotten an off track there. So it's a little inconsistent from lap to lap. So just have to hope and pray if you're in a qualifying lap. Coming up to this really fast left-hander, we want to use all of the road. It's really, really important. So we're going to use a little bit of the grass here, so that we can get as wide as possible. Sometimes the edge of the track is the grass, and we have to take advantage of that. Fairly big lift here, and just trying to get the car to the left hand. Want to avoid this part right here. There's a big bump that really upsets the car, so we want to avoid that, but run right alongside that. Also, there's an off track here. If you put a tire on this grass, you get an off track. And you want to rotate ideally the car on throttle, and just manipulate the throttle so that you don't go out wide, but maintain the speed as high as possible. I'm looking out for this dirt patch here for the braking, and I'm going to try and brake fairly early. The more left you can be, and the straighter your car, the later you can brake. So it just depends how much speed you took through this fast left-hander prior. In this case, I took a lot of speed through there, and I wasn't able to get back to the left-hand side, so I'm braking from the right-hand side, so I'm going to have to brake just a little bit earlier than if I was on the left. Braking down to first or second gear here, and just holding that brake and just being really, really patient and feeling it out. And you just have to get a feel for when the car is ready to go here. If you go too early, the rear is going to want to step out. There's a lot of traction control right here where the car just wants to go to the rear, wants to go to the left, and the traction control wants to kick in. So you have to be very careful on throttle there. Coming up to the chicane, I would say this is probably the most difficult part of the track. Yeah, second most difficult part of the track. And as we're approaching here, we want to brake early. There's not really a great braking point here. So what I do is I use the top of the rev range. So as I'm hitting that rev limiter, I'm getting ready to get on the brakes. That's what I use. Not this. There's no visual brake marker here for me. And I'm trying to get fairly close to the left barrier here, but not too close because the car will get upset here because it's a very big bump, very big curb. So we could go a little bit more to the left, but then it really upsets the rear. And what's really important here is that you don't have a lot of brake input while you're going over this curb. You have to be releasing the brake. Otherwise, the car is just going to bottom out a little bit. And same thing here. You want to get on throttle as you're getting on this curb because this curb also will upset the car if you're braking. And it's really important to get on throttle early. As you can see, the only way to rotate this car properly through here is to be far left here and to slow it down early. If you slow it down late, then you're going to get on throttle roughly around here and it's too late and you miss out on a lot of speed. And as you can see, you can take a little bit of this grass so you can cut right onto that curb there on exit. That's really, really important. If you're not doing that, then you're losing a lot of time on the lap. Going into this next chicane, we're braking before the 100 board. It's easy to want to brake late. And you can still make this corner by braking after the 100 board. But you're going to be out of control. And it's really easy to just lightly tap these tire barriers and get a lot of damage, get steering damage. And so it's better to just avoid that. Brake earlier, brake a little lighter, good release of the brakes and rotate the car. And just really focus on getting as close to these tire barriers as you can while in good control of the car. And again, it's just about manipulating the throttle and brake to shift the weight around a little bit and just get through that slalom. We're going to run fairly wide here, not all the way, because if we run all the way out wide here, then we're not going to be able to get back to the left. And we have a fairly long straight after this right-hander. So we want to be to the right of the middle of the road here and bring the car back to the left as far as possible. Be very careful because it's really easy to put this left rear tire on this grass, and you do not want to do that, as that will upset the car. More than likely, you will spin out if that happens. And there's a balance here of how much speed you can take through here. It seems like you could probably get on throttle here, but then the car will understeer a lot. So you have to be very, very patient. A lot of people will brake here, will try to carry more throttle and brake. But I find that moves the weight of the car too far forward. And so, in my opinion, it is better to just not throttle as hard through here and just lift off early and just feel out the car. And before you get to this curb, just put a little bit of throttle in just to get the car up to speed a little bit more, but not fully, because if you go fully on throttle really fast through here, then the car is going to understeer, because as you can see it here, the car is pointing to this tree over here. It's not rotating, but I want to rotate it with a little bit with throttle, and that's what I'm doing here. Just a little bit of throttle, and then eventually you're able to get to 100% throttle. And you want to straddle this curb. The car can bottom out on this curb. And if you're too far to the left, you're going to get an off track. It's really easy to get an off track there. As we're going up the hill, I want to keep the car to the left-hand side just to minimize distance travel. Let the car go to the right-hand side here, because what we're trying to do is make our approach, our trajectory into this next braking zone as straight as possible. Because imagine if you're coming in from this left side, then you're going to have to turn a lot more. You're actually going to have to slow the car down probably to get to the left-hand side, or you're just not going to be able to get to the left-hand side. You're going to brake from the middle of the track, which means you're not going to use all of the track, which means you're not going to carry as much speed through the corner. And so what you want to do is get that straight trajectory. It's really important. Position the car properly. It's going to make everything else a lot easier. And brake along the edge of the track on the first part with a slight turn in, and then continue to brake on the edge of the track on the second part, and bring the car into the apex, which is going to be right in the middle here on that, along that curb. We don't want to touch this curb. We just want to be along that curb, maybe touching the white line. And we want to get on throttle as early as we can. Too early and you're going to drift out wide. So we want to get on throttle early and allow the car to rotate. There's compressions here that allow the car to rotate. But if you mistime it, then you're not going to be hitting the compressions in the right manner to get that extra grip. So if you find that you're getting out of here on the grass on the left-hand side, then that means you just didn't hit this compression properly. And so that's going to drift you to the left and give you a bunch of understeer. And so for the final corner, well, technically second to last corner, we're going to be braking right before this this board over here, the right hand board. Right before or right on it, depends what you're doing here. The further you push, the easier the rear is going to step out on the car. And want to stay to the left as much as possible. Use all of the track. Apex is going to be along this access road, and want to be getting on throttle. You can get on throttle earlier than the apex for this one, but you have to be very patient. If you get on throttle fully, then the car is going to understeer. The traction control is going to kick in, and the traction control is still going to kick in at this stage. So you have to be mindful of that. You're going to need to countersteer a little bit. You might even need to get off the throttle, maybe 2 to 5%, so that you don't hit traction control that much. You don't want to use all the track on exit and keep it tight to the left-hand side to finish out the lap. And that is a lap here at Oulton Park. As I said before, it is a very narrow track, so make sure that you use all of it, and make sure that you get a good qualifying. It's going to be really, really important. Follow me on Twitch at Boris Angel for some live action racing, and I'll see you next week here for Misano Track Guide. Thanks, guys.